we're 1 minute away from the start of Columbia, now passing over Australia. Landing expected at Kennedy Space Center at about 7:10 a.m. Central Time this morning. Weather in the area reported to be good. Approaches flown in the shuttle training aircraft by astronaut Hoot Gibson. Reports recently that the skies are clear, 7 miles plus visibility, light winds. No concern for crosswinds on this first landing.
Well, we're looking over the runway for anything we can find that would be a problem for the orbiter. Lots of times we find twigs, rocks, whatever might be out here. Some of it's brought across by birds. We're in the middle of a game preserve.
Columbia, Houston, check auto damp and an item 27, please.
Expected time is 0809.
The shuttle is a difficult aircraft to fly. It doesn't have engines when it comes back to Earth. It has a very what we call high wing loading. It has the short stubby wings, and I guess you could say it is a low lift to drag ratio. It sinks like a brick.
And it was watched with considerable amusement by members of the aeronautical fraternity who called it the flying brickyard because it had the aerodynamic characteristics of a pair of pliers. And in fact, many people expected that if the shuttle were going to have an accident, it would be on landing because its flying characteristics were practically nil. It sort of lands in a controlled crash.
The big surprise is the sonic booms. The thing announces its arrival with this boom, boom sound of the leading edge of the wing and the tail breaking the sound barrier. People are self-motivated. They came here to be in this business, to do this job, to feel like they're an important part of it. And that alone motivates them to the point where the thing you're more likely to do is get trampled in a rush to get things done. You don't have to lure people out to do work. Not in our business. The thing is full of all kinds of toxic stuff from its on-orbit propellant system. So you see these trucks go out to so-called safe the orbiter, and that's making sure that none of these fumes are loose or can affect the ground crew or the astronauts as they debark.
You've rolled to a stop, you've come to the conclusion of a successful mission, and there's a real feeling of euphoria, but at the same time, your big experience has ended, and you're back to the end of the line in terms of getting ready to go for another one. So it's a bittersweet experience.
About 4 hours after landing here, the astronauts are off the ship, the orbiter systems have all been safe, the tug's hooked up to the orbiter, and we're in the process of getting the final go to tow.
invented after the Apollo program, and NASA proposed going to Mars, and of course the price tag was phenomenal. So NASA invented at that time what it came to call the next logical step, which was to go to Mars, but do it by incremental steps. To get to Mars, you really had to launch the mission from a space station. To get to the space station, you had to have a vehicle that could fly routinely into low Earth orbit and back again. So how about building a shuttle, and you weren't throwing away your launch vehicle every time you used it?
It is the most marvelous machine ever built, but there's no destination for the shuttle. The shuttle was designed to go to a space station, so it goes up and down to space without doing the primary mission that it was intended to. And if we don't have a space station as the destination for a shuttle, one can't justify the enormous shuttle costs that we have.
Kennedy Space Center is an incredible place where the real hardware comes together, and it produces its own set of difficulties. JSC is more cerebral. I mean, it's a paper project and it's a mental project. We think what we're going to do with that vehicle once it's flying.
The Johnson Space Center is the place that astronauts live and work. It's the place where people prepare for the missions, where the astronauts are trained, where the missions are simulated, and ultimately when the orbiter is in space, where the missions are controlled.
At 11:50, we think the engine will go down at 4 minutes.
Fido standing by for performance call.
First row of consoles, people are going to be mostly worrying about the trajectory of the orbiter, where it's going, and if we're making the places in space we've got to get to. The second row of consoles is mostly going to be worrying about the systems on board the spacecraft. The third row is mostly going to be concerned with the command of the vehicle, sending the commands, the flight director, and overall decisions, and the Capcom communicating with the crew. Back here, the people in the hot seat are going to be the boosters. They're going to be monitoring the main engines and the hydraulics officers on the other side of that.
Go for 2 fans and have day 1.
Discovery Houston, you go for the 2 fans, and how do you hear me on this transmission?
Being a flight director is just hours and hours of boredom interspersed with moments of stark terror.
I wish they hadn't done that. They took the butt down for us.
Most of the time, everything goes very well. And but then there are those moments where suddenly, and very unexpectedly, you're in a situation where your performance has ultimate consequences.
Houston, and we're looking at control CA2 down. Sorry.
Not a good sign.
My name is Eileen Collins, and I'm an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. I'm currently training to fly on STS-63, which is a space shuttle flight scheduled for February of 1995. We've never had a woman fly in the right seat of the space shuttle as a space shuttle pilot. When I first decided I wanted to be an astronaut, it was such a far-off, wild dream. I was embarrassed to tell anybody that I wanted to do it. Of course, back then, as a youngster, there were only men astronauts.
NASA 913, after this pattern, we'll be requesting departure to the local area.
913, Roger. Whenever we say we want some astronauts, we get hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of applicants. It's easy to go fishing in a pool that's this deep, you know. We pick 20 or 25 every couple years, are superb individuals. Maverick isn't exactly what you want, and you don't want a computer nerd or something. You don't want somebody that's very, very good in just one subject and not broad. So what we look for is somebody who is, of course, intelligent and willing to work hard and, in fact, subvert their own desires for somebody else's, because in many cases you carry somebody else's science up into orbit and do their work. Somebody who can get along in a team situation and behave pretty well in an emergency. In airplanes, the convenient thing is, though, you can put an instructor pilot in with a pilot and you can go putzing around the countryside and learn how to do things. Spaceflight is still so expensive, you can't do that. You can't send a rookie into orbit because of the time and the expense. So we try to recreate the environment on the ground.
Now, when we do the simulator training, we have an astronaut crew in the actual simulator itself. We have a training crew, which is down at the console, and they have a script that they have written ahead of time on a list of malfunctions that they're going to input into the simulator. And then we have flight controllers over in mission control, and they don't know what kind of malfunctions are coming. And the astronaut crew doesn't know what's coming.
Okay, we're in Flight Control Room 1. We're about to start an integrated simulation. We're about to launch Discovery.
Copy, lift. Roger, roll, Discovery.
So what you do is you launch, and you immediately start getting malfunctions. And what the pilot needs to do, and the commander and the mission specialist, is identify what is wrong. And that's difficult.
Leaks going in.
Left engine helium leak.
Holler when you're out of the... Houston for Eileen, we see a leak on the left engine helium. Go for the procedure.
In training, they pound on us incessantly. But after a while, you even get used to an environment where there are 20 or 30 malfunctions an hour coming at you, and you get used to it.
Discovery Houston, main engine limits inhibit. Stuck in the bucket.
Cannot simulate that pressure, and the way we make up for it in training is to put in a large number of problems, which leads to the same kind of feelings of pressure that you get on a real flight day when maybe one thing is not working exactly right.
We're on one IMU right now. See, it pulls out. Yeah. It's starting to clean up a little now. It's not looking too bad. Now they survived it this far, let's let them land.
Crews come back laughing. They say if you can survive the simulators, the spaceflight itself is a dream.
Trying to keep up with the vehicle that's going about Mach 25, and our brains are only about Mach 23, so we were scrambling.
Oh, it's better than a workout at the gym.
Spaceflight is a unique environment. It starts with the lack of apparent gravity. When you're taken away, you're in an environment now that my system was not designed to be in.
And even if you had all the money in the world, you cannot simulate zero gravity. So, and that oftentimes presents the biggest challenges when you get up there, is dealing with that and operating in that environment.
Flight prep, 150, that's correct.
Up there, you're on a different time. The sun goes up and down every hour and a half. And depending upon your kind of work and sleep schedule, you have a different form of time up there.
Right now, what we can identify is that there are risks, both for things such as bone loss, muscle loss, equilibrium changes, blood pressure changes, heart muscle changes. We're trying to see what those risks are.
I'm ready to go to work. Like the cardiovascular system, it doesn't have to move blood uphill, it doesn't have to move blood out of my feet to get up to my heart. And bones, after a long period of time, they become more porous and they start to go away.
The loss of calcium from the bones. It begins immediately, but it continues, probably at the rate of about 1% of your long bone calcium per month.
In the middle ground, things that occur over a week or 2 weeks, and that is the loss of muscle, because I don't need to use muscle to move around. I walk with my hands instead of with my feet up there.
Everything takes longer to do when you first get up there, whether it be going to the bathroom or preparing and eating your meal or getting ready to exercise on a bicycle that we carry up there or anything. If I'm sitting here in this room and I were to drop a pencil, I would begin looking on the floor and the tops of the tables and the tops of the chairs in the room, but in zero gravity the pencil could be floating right here behind my head, and I could spend minutes looking for it until some other crewmate says, well, turn and look, it's right there. Sleeping up there is really pleasant. They advertise water beds as being so good because there are no pressure points. Well, in zero gravity, there are absolutely no pressure points. And it's, and you can just close your eyes and drift off very, very easily.
Okay, well, check. Fairly sharp on north of it. It's where...
The unmanned people, the scientists, have hated the shuttle and hate the space station and hate everything having to do with them because they say it amounts essentially to clowning around in orbit, to high wire acts, trapeze, and that sort of stuff. And that, in fact, it is antithetical to science.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Roger.
The shuttle's scientific perspective is extremely narrow and I don't think it's too much to say boring.
I think you have to be a little careful when you listen to the scientists criticize the human spaceflight program, because by and large those are the scientists that have grown up with robotic missions that don't require human presence. I mean, there's another whole set of scientists, material scientists, life sciences, biomedical science that are eager to get on with shuttle experiments.
The human brain is the best adaptive computer that I know of. There are things that robots could do, and there are things that humans could do. There is the extension of human experience. We are explorers. It's written into our genetic code.
But it's not. You keep going to the same dull place in which there is nothing and call it exploration. You degrade the currency of the word exploration. Whereas if we were going somewhere, to some new world, then I think public support could much more readily be sustained. We are lost in an obscure backwater of space and time, a small planet that goes around one of 400 billion other stars, located on the periphery of a minor spiral arm of one of 100 billion other galaxies. That's the fact. That's where we are. And if we find that daunting, then it's time to work on our daunting machinery, not to ignore the universe.
Oh, well, it's an incredibly beautiful, it's an aesthetic kind of spaceship. I mean, it is magnificent. You understand you are a threat out there, your very presence. Rubbing and touching anything produce contamination by definition. You flake little things off, dust off. You try not to touch anything. We were trying to turn work into art. Just how good a craftsman can you be? Working out there is working with a really bulky glove. It's working with a suit that weighs 500 pounds, and you're dealing with screws 2 or 3 millimeters in size that were non-captive, because in zero G everything is free, and you'll just watch these screws. They do their little dance. Every time you touch one of those things, you impart energy, and it starts a dance. dance of the spheres.
I remember waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and turning on the television, seeing Story hanging out on the edge of the Hubble with Australia up under him. It's probably one of those one-in-a-lifetime things. When I get to be an old guy, I can see myself with my grandkids on my knee telling them about, remember that big telescope up there? I helped train astronauts to fix that.
Now, Hubble's the most powerful instrument in terms of looking at the universe that we have ever had. Now, that's why Hubble touches people, but not only as a literal, physical, scientific instrument, it is a symbol for humanity's quest. What is our place in the universe? What is our universe?
Well, the shuttle will just be another easy system. You know, within a matter of weeks, a couple weeks after getting the books on it, I'll study it up and I'll be ready to go fly it. And it turned out to be not the case.
The aircraft is a highly modified Gulfstream II. Flies almost exactly like the space shuttle. The performance has been modified so it descends like the space shuttle. The same descent rate, the same type of drag. It's very, very important training for shuttle pilots because the shuttle is a very difficult aircraft to fly, and it's very different from any other airplane that I've flown in my life.
We have an instructor pilot in the right seat who gets the airplane up to about 35,000 feet. And at that point, we put the engines into reverse, and you're rapidly on your way down to Earth at the rate of 22,000 feet a minute.
Commercial airlines, you come in at about a 2% glide angle coming down. Shuttle comes in 22%. That's going downhill real fast.
In order to model the touchdown eye height of the space shuttle, the pilot has to be some 33 feet in the air. Well, that puts the G2's wheels still 20 feet off the ground.
Before you fly as a commander, you typically have about 1,000 approaches. And you get about 10 a flight, so about 100 flights in the shuttle training aircraft.
It's a real nice process coming back. When you hit the Earth's atmosphere, you're doing Mach 25 or about 18,000 miles an hour. And the way you slow down is by pancaking or sort of speed braking the orbiter into the Earth's atmosphere. And that's why the tile are so critical on the bottom, is that they absorb that heat.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, that's it.
Lower surface tiles can protect up to 2,500 degrees. It is sometimes hard to believe that it protects it like it does. It's strictly real thin aluminum underneath, that's all it is.
113, 115, 106.
It's a giant jigsaw puzzle that has 35,000 different shapes and sizes of tiles.
Next row. 12, 20.
The tiles were masterpieces of thermodynamic engineering, but they were also a nightmare for developing and building a new vehicle. There were 31,000 tiles on the first shuttle on the Columbia. They all had to be put on by hand.
And it did seem like an endless job, like something we would never perfect. They were so fragile. It seemed like every time you were working on them, something went wrong.
It took a total of 670,000 hours to put them on, 335 man-years. A worker could install about 2 in a week. It was a nightmare.
If one sees an infrared image of the shuttle, you see that there are extremely hot places on the forward edges of the wings and the tails and other places on the fuselage.
We got quite a light show out here right now.
It was really like flying inside of a neon tube. We were looking out through there, and all of a sudden this glow started at about 300,000 feet.
There's this nice, soft orange light that surrounds the vehicle. It doesn't look all that hot, but it's there because it is hot.
We're sure looking at 2,000 to 3,000 degrees right outside the window. It was awesome and very impressive, and it worked.
In the Apollo days, when the capsules came in, all the heat protection burned off. But what we do now keeps the astronauts safe. Without us, it doesn't come back.
Actually carrying about $3 billion worth of national assets, you know, here on our shoulders, you know, while we're going to the pad, it's pretty mind-boggling. But to me, the more incredible part about the crawler is when you do dock it up at the pad, the accuracy is down to a 1/16 of an inch that we can stop the crawler at, north, south, east, and west. So even though she may be a clumsy beast, she can really put it on a dime. We are rolling about a mile an hour at this time. We have about an hour and a half left to go to get to the top of the pad. And Hans is running pretty good. I started calling them Hans and Franz after Beastie Boys, and that's where we got it from, was from a Saturday Night Live clip. They used to have characters on it called Hans and Franz, and they were here to pump you up. And that's what we do.
When we developed the shuttle, we used the old facilities that had been created for Apollo and adapted them for shuttle. It's very much a cobbling together of budget-driven design compromises that we see.
It was a learning process of old technology and new technology put together to try to define and place how we can go on from here to do it more efficiently.
There are something like 30,000 people involved in getting a shuttle ready for launch and launching, and that's no way to make it cheap. The idea that we could have done that somehow for $10 million a throw just boggles the mind when you see what actually happens.
NASA was given a very difficult job, and technically NASA performed. The shuttle is too expensive to operate. We've got to find much faster, cheaper ways of doing it.
After the fueling is complete, we come out here with a team called the ICE team. We've only got 2 hours to look at every square inch on this vehicle and pronounce it ready for launch. We are well aware that there's over 2 million pounds of solid rocket fuel in the boosters and over 500,000 gallons of cryogenic fuel in the external tanks. So it is a hazardous operation. There is potential for major problems there should anything ever occur. So all the team members are volunteers. It actually strikes me as a living, breathing entity. It makes sound. There is the hissing of purge gases escaping, the popping of valves opening and closing, the rumble of the burn stack as we burn off the excess hydrogen. And so you get this impression that it is ready to go and it's catching its breath, waiting to jump off the pad.
My name is Al Sofji. I'm the shuttle test director at Kennedy Space Center, and my prime function is to lead the launch team during the launch countdown process, which starts 3.5 days before the actual liftoff. The final hours of launch start approximately 8 to 10 hours before launch, and we come in, we check the weather, make sure we have good weather. We check with all of our systems and all of our support areas around the world and make sure that no one has a problem that would prevent us from tanking or launching.
When you get ready to launch the shuttle from the Kennedy Space Center, you have several emergency landing fields on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, 6 time zones away. And so if it gets too late in Florida, that means it's already, particularly in the winter, dark in Spain or on the coast of Africa. And so you can cancel a launch because your emergency landing sites are in darkness.
There is no actual button that someone pushes. We have what we call a ground launch sequencer, which is effectively a computer program that takes us down through the last minutes of launch. It can stop itself if it detects a problem, or anyone in the firing room can request a hold if they see a problem.
Well, I'm Bob Seek. I'm the launch director for the space shuttle. My responsibility is to make sure that we don't get launch fever, we don't get carried away. In this pyramid of reaching the final go for launch, everyone is polled where they have to indicate that they are really go to proceed.
NASA Test Director, this is ICE Team, Channel 232. We're complete on the FSS 215-foot level. Everything looks fine.
If I'm comfortable that there's nothing out there that's bugging anybody, then it's fairly easy to give the go-ahead to launch.
Believe it or not, I'm not a risk taker, and so I try to minimize risk, and I look upon launch as one of the riskier parts of space flight. Maybe in the future you'll be able to beam me up there, Scotty, and I would accept that.
The count goes down. You hear T-minus 31 seconds. The onboard computers kick on. You start to get a rush.
The last few seconds, the launch count, there's a lot of dynamic things occurring on the shuttle. Things are powering up, pumps, engines.
You hear the engines kick on. You can see the large steam cloud rise, and then you hold your breath for a few seconds, praying that those solid rocket motors were going to go.
And that 6 seconds seemed to last for an eternity because The vibration was so high you could feel the shuttle just straining against the launch pad. You'd think it's going to shake itself apart, and let's hurry up and light solid rocket motors. Come on, let's go. And then bang, at 0 when the solids light.
When those kick on, you're going to go somewhere. The shuttle will not stay at the pad.
What powers a thing is the absolute feeling and the love that the people have here at the center, from the people that work with a wrench to the people that work with a paper, the people that really feel like they're almost physically pushing it off the pad, and their hearts go with it every time. It's as if it's an absolute member of their family, if not a part of their being.
Launch is very fast, it is very violent, it is very noisy. It's basically vibrations and noise. I'm scared of launches, I'm scared to death of launches. I really don't like doing them, but I accept them, and I accept that risk. Space is my calling.
The vibration was so tremendous inside the cockpit that those gauges kind of blurred. It was like, well, it's a good thing I've trained so long to study these gauges, so I can't read them now.
In the space of about 1 minute and 45 seconds, we're traveling faster than the fastest rifle bullet. We're above Mach 3.
What will we do if we lose an engine at this point? Will we return to Kennedy, or will we continue to Africa? Will we go to Spain? Or, will we have to dump fuel from our orbital maneuvering engines if we lose an engine at this point, or not dump fuel? And what orbit will we go to? And, so there's all these things that you have to be staying ahead of the vehicle on, thinking if the next malfunction occurs, what do I do?
After 2 minutes and 12 seconds, you're off the solids and you're onto the main engines. That's a smooth ride.
It is a bit of a relief to know that they're gone. And you figure that the main engines have been working just fine for 2 minutes. No reason they shouldn't for another 6. So you're feeling pretty good at that point.
It takes approximately 8.5 minutes of powered flight from liftoff at the pad until you're going 17,500 miles an hour. When you're on board, that's a very exciting ride. It goes by very quickly. When you're sitting in a management position, that is the longest 8.5 minutes in the world.
MECO is a NASA acronym for main engine cutoff. MECO, main engine cutoff. So you always hear MECO, and there's great smiles that go up in MECO, particularly if it's a safe MECO.
Closing my eyes just as the engine shut down, I was, of course, in free fall. It's rather abrupt from having a 3G push in which you weigh 3 times. I weigh roughly 460 pounds or so, to 0G into free fall. Just a magical experience.
It's euphoria on board. It's euphoric. There's just the whole crew who lets up a cheer. I'm not sure if it's an unspoken thought in everybody's mind, or just sheer joy of being there. But it's certainly a little bit of both. We're alive and we're in orbit. What could be better?
It's an archetypal dream of human flight. We as humans, for as long as we've been humans, have thought about doing that.
Insurance salesman called me up. I surprised him. I said, yes, I am interested in life insurance, what he called. And He said, oh, great. I could tell it's probably the 1 in 100 that he'd got that day. And I said, how old are you? And do you smoke? No, good physical condition. Yes. And great. And what's your occupation? I said, well, I'm an astronaut. Dead silence on the phone. Without a doubt, the hardest part is what I do, and what I enjoy doing. Is it worth the risk to my family? Because I love my family dearly, and I have 3 small daughters, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-month-old now, and when you kiss them goodbye 7 days prior to your scheduled launch as you go into quarantine, because you're not allowed to see your children in quarantine, that's a difficult night. Very difficult.
I asked Annie a couple of weeks before flight, are you excited about your daddy going up in space? And she said, no. And I said, well, why not? She says, it might blow up. So Challenger is still there in the forefront, I think.
That's what I think of every time it goes up. And the boosted separation really bothers me. And my children, laugh at me when we have a joke afterwards, but I jump every time.
Seeing that shuttle going up is amazing too, because you're watching all this power just push this tremendous shuttle into the air, and it starts to hover at first, and it seems like that's the only thing you care about in the world right now.
It's an incredibly dangerous business. You're trying to lose so much energy in such a short period of time. You're using such sophisticated techniques and procedures and equipment. We're going to lose people. We're going to lose more people. I think it's only through the dedication of all the fine folks who work in this business we haven't lost more already.
Then when you get to countdown, it never gets to be routine. It never gets to be old hat. You can't help as a human being not to have that nagging feeling that, have you ever done enough? Have you ever really done enough?
At this point, our forecasters are predicting only a 20% chance of violating our launch constraints at that particular time, and only a 20% chance of violating...
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Talon. Have a good day.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Okay.
At
Get it up.
time,
All right.
We expect to have some scattered clouds.
On schedule. Launch at 8:07 hours. The window extends to 13:09. Let's hope this launch goes on time.
We've loaded the tank and we're replenishing it, keeping up with what we call the heat leak, because it's not a perfect thermos bottle. So we have to keep adding a couple 100 gallons a minute of hydrogen and oxygen to the tank.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 3 hours in holding. Crew preparing to have the mission cape with the STS-59 mission emblem on it. This is shuttle launch control. Approximately 1 hour and 11 minutes remaining in this built-in hole. The ice team is at the pad doing their inspections at this time and is reporting some limited ice found on the external tank. Commander C. Gutierrez, pilot Kevin Chilton, and there's our payload commander Linda Godwin.
It is a strange thing. You do all this sophisticated training, you have all these people who do all this high-tech preparation, but it really does come down to a few people who take you in a bus out to the launch pad. They do strap you into this vehicle, and then you know that anybody in their right mind gets way the hell back away from this thing, at least 3 miles, and leaves you alone out there with all of this high explosives, and makes you think very hard about doing this job.
Now on the way to launch pad 39A in
There is a ceremony, and I think it's a ceremony that we need as human beings. We need ceremony, and I think in this case, these are emissaries that we're sending out into space.
Yeah, well, and the excitement in the bus kind of builds, too, as we're coming down. I can remember going out and people saying, okay, one more corner. Oh, you know, look at that. Isn't it marvelous? Normally, you're used to arriving at the pad and finding all these workers, you know, scurrying all over the place, readying the vehicle for flight or readying the pad. Suddenly, you get out there, and there's just the 6 of you on the crew and the 6 members of the team that are going to help strap you in and do the final hatch closing. And that's it. Those are the only human beings out there in this big, beautiful rocket ship.
We're at the 195-foot level of the tower. Crew module's right here. The external tank is not more than 20 feet to this side, and there's a solid rocket booster that's loaded and ready to go that's right next to it. So we're right in the middle of it. All of that's full, and we've got about 1 million gallons of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen right there ready to go. So you're one of a dozen people that you're out here, and everybody else is 4 miles away.
OTC Endeavor. Go ahead. Yeah, we'd like to confirm with Houston that RTLS is not a waypoint and runway 36.
This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 2 hours, 6 minutes. Mission Specialist Tom Jones is now being prepared for first morning endeavor.
There you go. Okay, we got you now.
At this point, you're kind of numb to the whole thing, I think. You're just excited a bit and looking forward to getting in and strapped in and settled down. And it's a bit uncomfortable like this. Kind of laying on some valves on the back of the suit. But it's not too bad for the first hour and a half or two. As you approach a little after that, you start getting a little uncomfortable with sometimes back pain. So the quickest way to get comfortable is to launch, you know. If you scrub, it takes them about 40 minutes to get back out here and open the hatch and take you back. But if you launch, it's only 8.5 minutes to 0 G. So that's the most comfortable end of the deal. Get into that one where I'll put your boots up.
OTC. Go ahead. Yeah, we'd like you to turn the portable O2 back on. Copy.
Good morning. How long have y'all been cooking this morning? The beans have become such a trademark to what we do here. It's like fish and loaves. There couldn't have been enough to go around, and it grew and it grew, and now it's a tradition, and we feel like the beans are part of our luck, and the beans are also a part of the celebration.
Shuttle Launch Control, astronaut Bruce Kidman, above shuttle training aircraft. He can evaluate the actual weather conditions around the runway. Definitely waiting for his report before we commit to launch this morning.
I think that people become addicted. They go back time and again to watch them, you know. The people who live down there get up at all hours of the day or night when there's a bird about to go. You know, all the cars stop and watch it go.
The observance, it's almost like people going to watch the king bathe.
It is kind of a religion. I mean, it's like people are watching human beings leave the earth, and it's a process that they want to be a part of.
It's kind of like our Super Bowl day, and we're all hoping and praying and a little bit nervous.
KSC area is clear for launch. Copy.
Still targeting 7:05 for our liftoff time.
Yeah, it's clearing up nicely.
Now checking the flight controls of Endeavour. Final check before liftoff of the rudder and elevons. We'll be checking the main engines.
Going to it again?
Yeah.
Are you happy? Okay, and remember, walk out this way. So that's right, huh? Okay.
Hej alle KTV-seere. Dagens videopodcast fra USA er faktisk lidt specielt i dag, for jeg står her ved Cape Kennedy.
T-minus 5 minutes.
TLS go for orbiter AQ start. TLT, OTC, perform AQ start.
Work in space.
Good work.
Kevin Chilton now flipping 3 switches in the cockpit to start each of the 3 APUs. T-minus 1 minute. Now turning off the joint heaters on the solid rocket boosters.
Done with this, laid it out.
TLS go for auto sequence start.
Endeavour's computers now controlling.
10. TLS go for main engine start.
7, 6, main engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour, observing the changes of planet Earth.
Speed now 1,000 miles an hour, 5 miles downrange.
Never go at throttle up. Roger, going throttle up.
Altitude 9 miles, 3 engines now back at full throttle.
Look at that shadow.
Altitude now 15 miles. Speed 2,100 miles an hour, 15 miles east of the launch pad. Flight controllers standing by for burnout and jettison of the twin solid rockets. Good solid rocket booster separation confirmed. Endeavour now 33 miles northeast of the launch pad. Altitude 30 miles. Speed 2,700 miles an hour.
Endeavour, performance nominal. Copy, performance nominal.
It means now if it loses one engine, it can still make it to Africa.
Speed now 13,600 miles an hour. 600 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center.
5,000 miles an hour to go. All that from the last.
Your speed 16,400 miles an hour.
Yeah, you came on 3,000 right there.
Present to Miko.
The longest 18 minutes in the world that exist from T-minus 9 until main engine shut off. And it's almost hard to breathe during that period of time.
Booster officer confirms the good cutoff of the main engine.
Good job on the engine, buddy.
Nice job, Mel.
Yeah.
Hey, nice job.
Good job, buddy. We're up there. Everything's uphill, we call it.
You work for months, 2 or 3 months on an orbiter to get it ready, and when the engines light up and it fires off the pad, it's just like you feel it right in your gut. It's absolutely perfect. It's beautiful.
Couldn't be better. I mean, everything worked. No fizz, funnies, fails, or falls. Hey, JB.
Well, it's a tradition at least, and when you got something working for you, don't change it. He's home down on your beams here.
Manned access to space, we feel, is on our shoulders. It has to be damn near perfect every time because we can't tolerate a failure. We can't tolerate it. It's a zero-tolerance program.
And I think everybody in NASA realizes that, and no one wants to make the small incremental mistake that puts the space shuttle at risk, not only again for the human tragedy, but also for the enormous political consequences. So this is an agency that lives in fear of making a little mistake and that grinds the wheels to a halt.
I think it is time for the American public to fish or cut bait. Either it wants to go to space or it doesn't. And if it does decide to go to space and it wants to keep people in space, then I think it's got to grow up. And it's got to decide that you take your hits. You pay for this with blood and treasure.
Should we crawl into a cave and assume the prenatal position and say, oh God, I'm so worried about launching a shuttle? NASA cannot live in fear. I tell our people to take risks, do everything possible to make it as safe as possible. But we will not stop flying. We've got to go to the boundary. Now, if America decides if we have a problem to cancel a program because we've lost that ability to take risk, I cry for America, not for NASA.